Is on the disability of stereo-blindness. So while thinking of ideas and people to interview, my wife actually reminded me that I have a disability of my own that actually inhibits a lot of my life activities. So stereo-blindness is, if you look at the diagram to your right, it's basically the absence of perceiving depth. So people normally perceive depth with what's called binocular vision. It's where your left eye sees an image and your right eye sees a slightly different image because of the disparity between the two. And your brain combines the two images to create the 3D image that you see. And so with stereo blindness, it's basically where you're either missing vision in the left or the right eye, so you cannot perceive that three-dimensional depth. You basically just see a 2D image. So, history and background on me. The reason this disability kind of hits hard is because I wasn't always like this. It was actually a trauma induced disability. It was an event that happened. But before that, I was a huge enthusiast of things like 3D stereo technology, like watching 3D movies or other kind of just like 3D optical illusions, things like that. In my younger years, I actually experimented a lot with it. I had like multiple cameras I would use, and I'd set them up and create like 3D photos and videos of my own and show them with family. So going from that and kind of having those passions to not even being able to perceive those things for myself was kind of a hit right there, just from a hobby point of view. And then there was a load of other issues and things that came with it as well. So what happened was I was in a car crash and the airbag was faulty. So it kind of just exploded right up in my face, and it just severely damaged my left eye to where the vision in my left eye is basically unusable. And so I was actually diagnosed after all the surgeries and everything. I was diagnosed legally stereo blind after that point. And that was when I was about 17. And my current interests still include, I'm a very kind of visual creative person, so it includes visual media, and I also love like 3D art and things like that. So, typical day. My days honestly are pretty typical despite the disability, but there definitely are days and a lot of challenges that I do have. So, I kind of wanted to combine these two into one because an atypical day would be one where I do experience a lot of these challenges. So, for starters, when attending the movie theater or watching a movie, I've got to find the closest seats to the screen. I have to be really close to the screen because what happens is because I can only see really well out of one of my eyes, my other eye, it tries to like overcompensate for it. And so what happens is the eye will go lazy. And so it creates kind of like a blurred double image over my vision. Because I still do have a tiny bit of vision in my left eye, but it is so blurry, and there's actually just holes in the vision where it's just darkness. It's so kind of messed up to where it won't really merge with the right image. So I just get like this crazy double image, and it actually puts strain on my eye as well. So it's kind of like and it's not super painful, but there's like pressure that I can feel there. So just to avoid all that, I have to sit as close to the screen as possible to avoid that. And then kind of going along with that, I have to pay special attention and get closer to small details, whether it's text or images I'm looking at or like people I'm trying to see from far away. I have to make sure that I kind of just really focus in. Otherwise, the same thing happens. My eye goes lazy, and it's kind of just a very not pleasant experience. So while driving, I have to be extra careful. So because on my left side, I have very limited vision and basically no peripheral vision either. I always have to do double takes. If I'm like changing lanes to go left, I have to do a double take and twist my head all the way to look back to make sure that I'm good, because I don't really have the peripheral vision anymore for that in the driving sense. So driving is just a bit more, not complicated, but just a bit more tedious for me. Um, So if I do need an extra sense of depth, because I can't just see it right off, right offhand, I have to either, kind of tilt my head or move my head a little bit so I can kind of make up for that loss of stereo vision by having the parallax depth of actually moving my head physically to kind of see, if this thing is close to me, and I can kind of just judge it from that. Another thing that I'm severely limited in now is sports that involve hand-eye coordination. It's just harder because I can't really judge the depth. If a baseball is hurtling at me, it's really hard for me to decipher if it's like right up in my face or a couple feet away. At that speed, and also things like even like ping pong, it's like just a little bit harder to judge if my paddle is actually on the right trajectory to hit that ball or not. Things like that. I'm just also pretty changed in as well, and definitely not the same. Um, Job potential prospects are also narrowed for me. There's tons of jobs out there that require a certain level of visual acuity. The most extreme one would be like a pilot. I could never be um, I could never be a pilot. Basically, I'd never be considered just because they have such strict credentials for vision, and that's a good thing that they do. But now with the disability, that's just not a career path that if I ever wanted to, that I could ever be a part of anymore. And then going back to driving, my driver's license is actually a conditional license. I have a special sheet of paper that I have to carry around with me in my car to kind of prove that I am able to drive and have a driver's license as well. And every time that I have to re-up my driver's license, I think on the piece of paper it says every 5 years for my condition. I have to retake the actual physical driving test with an instructor just so that I can be given a driver's license and keep my driver's license. They kind of have to check up on me and make sure that my vision isn't too extreme to where I'm not allowed to drive anymore. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of assistive technology for my exact situation. I guess stereo blindness as a whole, there's not a lot of assistive technology. It's just the technology isn't advanced enough to really overcome the damage that is done with people with this condition. However, I have realized that technologies such as VR and AR are actually kind of bridging that gap. I've tried, especially VR for myself, and because the screen is so close to your face and so bright, my left eye, which is it's the one that's extremely visually impaired to where it causes the condition, but my left eye is actually able to make out a bit of the detail because the screen is so close and bright to your face that I kind of have a sense of like pseudo stereoscopic vision. It's still not anywhere close to being fully there, but it's a little bit better than just what I see in real life. So if there are advances made in that retrospect, I think that is a big step forward for people experiencing stereo blindness. And with that, that is the presentation.